Okay, just to recap, we made tic-tac-toe. We made a grid. It was a 300 by 300 box. Each cell was a 100 by 100 box, and so that's 1/3 of the width and height. And to get to the center of it, you go 1/6, or 3/6, or 5/6. So 50 pixels, 150 pixels, 250 pixels. That's what we're talking about. For the X, I find the center of the cell, and then I go 30 pixels up and 30 pixels left, and I draw a line from the center to 30 pixels right and 30 pixels down. And then for this part, you do it the other way. If it's a circle, you just draw a circle at the center with a radius of 30, and full circle, 0 to 2 pi. That's how you do it. We added an event listener, so whenever we clicked, we converted the mouse position into a grid number like 0, 1, or 0, 2, or 1, 2, or 2, 2. And then we use these formulas. That's how we got those numbers from the mouse position, using the floor function. And then to get the screen coordinates, we just use these formulas. Our algorithm was pretty simple. When you click a cell, is it an empty cell? If it's not an empty cell, you don't get to do that. If it is an empty cell, we just write to the state of the game. We make that mark in that nested array. We then draw a little picture on the image of an X or an O. We check to see if you've won, and if you did win, we just alert a message and kill the game. So we not only indicate the win, we eliminate the event listener that started this when you clicked, but we end that turn. And if you haven't won the game, then it just switches player. It doesn't kill the game, it doesn't kill the event listener, but it does end the turn. So it just waits for the next click. And we also made it so that if you did win, it doesn't switch the player. The check for win was a little tricky. We had these 8 different win possibilities, these win types. And again, there's a mistake here for the OR. Sorry about that. But the checking all the different win types, we did this. We set a value to false. Then we went through a list of win types, and we basically said set the thing to itself, or whether or not it won that win type, whether or not you won by that win type. So let's say you start false, and let's say you don't have any win types filled in. So it'll be false, or, and then you don't match that win type, so it'll be false. False or false gives you false. Then the next time it'll still be false, or did you win this other win type? If you didn't, then it's false or false, and that's still false. If you get any of them true, though, false or true becomes true, and or keeps the true as you go through the list, and by the time you get out, if there was any trues, you'll get a true. But if there were no trues, it'll be false. So we say check for win. It checks every win type, and if you got any of them, it'll say true, and if you didn't, it'll say false. Now, when it checks to see if you have won every individual win type, it does this. So now you're checking to see if you have an X or an O in every one of the 3 cells for that win type. So to do that, we say true, set the Boolean to true, go through the list. Does it match? Was it true, which we started at? And do you have the match? If that's true as well, then you have true and true, so it stays true. If you have another match, it's true and true again. If you have a failure, if you don't match in the last one, it'll say true and false. And since they're not both true, it'll become false. So by the end, if you have any failures to make a match, you will get a false. But if you match in every cell, it'll come out true. So very similar algorithms, and that looked like what we did for that check to win. We have a for loop, and inside of that we have another for loop. They're very similar what we're doing. For the main for loop, we have, did you get any of the triples? Any of the win types? Check every win type. In the list of win types, check every way to win that there is, and check that. And you're going to check to see if you got all three in that win type. If you do, you're going to use OR, because you're looking for any win. And if you have any win, I'm going to get rid of this. Then return that. If you did, it's true. If you didn't, it's false. Now within a win type, when you're checking that win type, you check every cell in that win type, all three of them, and you say, you start with true, and then you check to see, is the old value and the check that the cell has your mark in it? If that's true, it stays true as you go through again. As long as you have all marks, all trues, it'll come out as true. If because we're using and in this case. If any of them is false, that destroys it and it'll come out false. So these will only be true if you have all three in a win type. And the major one, the larger outer one, will be true if any set of three are all true. And so that's how that works. So I hope that made some sense. And feel free to tweak it. Let me know if you have questions. And then we'll move on to the next project.